I'm Cognac Wellerlane, and we are here at the Sofo Natural Museum, History Museum.
South Fork Natural History Museum, better known as Sofo. The title of the event is called Climate Change, What It Means for the East End. So we're focusing on East End issues related to climate change impacts.
Yeah, tell my audience a little bit more about this event and why it's so important that we all get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Our mission as an organization is to educate the public about environmental issues, about the natural history and how to preserve it, conserve it. We try to reach out to children and adults in many different ways through our programs, and tonight our event is to specifically focus on climate change. You know, a few years ago, climate change was just a word and a term that people used loosely. Now we're seeing, after Superstorm Sandy a couple of years ago, the impacts of high sea levels, the rising sea levels, and increased temperatures in our water and glaciers melting, which can create storm water issues here. Our salt water can be contaminated. Our freshwater aquifer systems can get flooded with salt water. That can be an issue. So all of these...
It's also killing our fish, too.
Well, that is not related to climate change specifically. That's more of an issue of people not being educated enough to know what stuff to put on their lawns and what things are put on the ground so that they get released into the water bodies of our local community. And that creates an influx of nitrogen into our water system, which creates algal blooms, which creates low oxygen, which can kill fish and can kill other marine life.
Now, this climate change is really affecting not just the East End here in the Hamptons and in Riverhead and all around. It's also affecting the whole entire world.
Well, the world. You know, we focus on a local scale, but in a global scale, there's all these climate change issues that need to be addressed. And an event like this here in our community really brings awareness to the community about how...
That's why I'm here. I want to bring awareness.
And awareness is the key word here. It's for this event. The premise of this event is to make people aware that climate change is for real, and we're going to need to address the impacts of climate change because something drastic is going to happen someday, and we need to be prepared for that for the future.
What should we do? How can we be prepared?
Well, that's the discussion that the professionals and the people that we have on the panel tonight are going to address. My background and my strong point as an executive director here at the museum is to create educational programs. So this event will initiate us to come up with new ideas and new programs specific to climate change.
Now tell my audience who will be speaking here tonight. Some very, very important people, including assemblymen and politicians. Tell my audience who will be speaking.
Today our moderator for our event is Assemblyman Stephen Engelbart, who's also a board of director of the South Fork Natural History Museum. We have Dr. Carl Safina, who is an author, a conservationist, and president and founder of the Safina Center. We have Peter Boyd, who's a leader in climate change issues and regulations in the community. We have Robbie Stein, who's running for Sag Harbor Village Mayor, who has a lot of input on a local scale. Jack Rifkin, who's an expert in creating solar energy and energy efficient guidelines to help alleviate the pressures of climate change. And then we also have Peter Boyd. Did I mention him yet? Peter Boyd?
I don't know, but we'll see when I go back and look at the video.
5 speakers that are speaking.
5 speakers.
Oh, and Michael Gerard. I'm sorry, Michael Gerard, who's a lawyer at the Columbia Law School for Climate Change. He's here as well, and he has been a tremendous influence on a global scale and a local scale in discussing and coming up with regulations and guidelines to deal with these climate change impacts.
This is a fascinating subject, really fascinating, and I think that all people should be quite aware of what is going on in the world. And this is a major, major thing that I'm so glad that you invited me to come to this event.
Thank you for being here, and this is just part of our mission to just create educational awareness about what's happening to our environment, and we need to continue doing this for our children and for...
Exactly, and we're not going to be here forever, but our children will be, and we want them to be in a safe environment.
We want them to be in a safe environment, but we also want them to be stewards and caretakers of our natural world.
I love the museum. Tell my audience how long this museum has been in existence.
Yeah, this museum, our nature education organization known as the South Fork Natural History Society has been educating for 26 years now. It's been the goal of our founding fathers of the South Fork Natural History Society to someday have this museum, which became a reality in 2005, and we've been here for 11 years now. We're a gateway to this preserve in the back known as the Long Pond Greenbelt. It's a wonderful place and a special place. Yeah, and we want people and families and children to come here and utilize. This is their land, and we want them to explore. We want them to discover the wonderful life and the natural environment that's here on the South Fork of Long Island.
Now, tell my audience where we should go to find out more information about climate control.
About the climate change, well, I mean, there's websites. NOAA has a really good website. NASA has a really good website. What this event is going to allow us to do in the future is create programs in the fall that we're going to introduce to the public specific to climate change issues. But the internet is a wonderful resource to look up climate change and find out the impacts that's taking place throughout the world at this particular time. So.
And your website, the museum's website, where can we go to find out more information?
Our museum is open 7 days a week. We only close on the 4 major holidays: Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, and New Year's. We're open from 10 to 4. Our website is www.sofo.org, and our phone number is 631-537-9735, and we're located right here in Bridgehampton, and we always encourage people to come and visit, bring their children. There's a lot of interactive exhibits and live animals here, and most importantly, we want to connect people with nature in a unique way so that it can stay with them for future generations.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you, Frank.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
so much for talking to me.
All right, great. Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment, darling. Some more interviews coming up. Keep watching. Pink Champagne Kisses.
A place with both sides of the political spectrum, or all sides of the political spectrum, going on. It's just a bit like saying, I think Stephen Colbert said, it's like, I've just ate, so there's no hunger in the world either. So I think, so as I say, that's my in terms of my 3 things that I wanted to get across to get sort of the discussion moving, because there's so much we can talk about and so much that's been covered already. I think the first thing is the effects are felt now and are very serious. So that's been covered by previous speakers, but things like 2014 was the warmest year on record. There are more and more data coming out. People are, for instance, getting old ship data that was only handwritten and put into databases now, and it's just all backing up. This is happening. It's a bit like, sort of.
Welcome back, darlings. I'm Cognac Wellerlane, and we are here in Sag Harbor, and we're here at a very important event And I'm here with this wonderful gentleman who is going to introduce himself and talk more about this event. Introduce yourself to the camera.
Hey, I'm Peter Boyd, the Senior Advisor for Climate at the B Team and former Chief Operating Officer at the Carbon War Room.
Now, I also spoke to the Executive Director of the museum here, Sofo Museum, but you as an individual who is a big supporter of this event, I want you to tell my audience what this event is really all about and what it means to you.
Well, what I think this event is about, and we've yet to have it, so we're looking forward to it, is a discussion on climate change and its effects on the local community here, but hopefully it's more than that. It's climate change in general, and what can we actually do about it? Because if we talk about not just the problem, but the solutions as well.
What drew you to this event? I mean, of course you were invited, but it's a very fascinating subject, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've spent my last almost decade looking at it and working on it full time. So Mr. Sabin was kind enough to invite me to be one of the panelists on it.
Really, have you? So you are an analyst regarding this event. So what impels you? What fascinates you about climate control? Tell my audience and why it's so important that we should all be aware.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's probably the single biggest issue that we've got facing us. Just take it broader than the words climate and climate change, in case some of your audience don't like the two words. It doesn't actually matter. There's this huge sustainability challenge facing us. We basically are using far too many resources and more of the bad stuff, and not enough of the abundant renewable resources that are getting cheaper, and we're using too much energy and too much resources. So we have to learn how to live sustainably, and that's probably the single biggest issue we face as a generation.
Yes, I know. Why is that? Why do you think we do that?
Well, I mean, we're running out. We're running out of a carbon budget. If you are talking about climate change, we're getting close to the 1 trillion tons of carbon that we've burnt. But we're also running out of other resources. We're putting too much nitrogen and phosphorus and fertilizers into our watersheds. We are creating biodiversity loss and killing species. You know, we're creating a planet that is not going to be able to sustain us. Meanwhile, we're growing to 7 billion now, on the course to 10 billion people. So we have
my gosh.
Yeah, so we've got more people almost sort of treating the planet worse than we could and should in order to be truly sustainable. So I mean, I think that's why it's the most important question facing us.
Tell my audience, what do you think we should do?
I think we should keep thinking on multiple levels. So on the global level, it might look boring, but it's really important. If the world in December in Paris decides to target net zero, as in no more new carbon dioxide, for instance, if we set a long-term goal as a world, that's really important. So if we can look at the world, you know, sort of through that TV and just say that's interesting and important. Less so, right down to the community level, though, there's choices that you can make, from insulating your home, from driving an electric vehicle or hybrid versus a gas guzzler.
Do you drive an electrical vehicle?
I drive this thing called a plug-in Prius. So
I love it.
So you plug it in and you get 15 miles of electric, and then it's hybrid for the rest. But the key thing for me is it's one of the cheapest car leases out there, and it's 70 miles a gallon. So I fill up an 8-gallon tank with $20 every 600 miles. So that's not about climate change. That's just money. That's
economics.
That's economic sense. Insulating your home is economic sense. You know, sort of these pieces. You know, that your home becomes more comfortable, and you're using less whatever fuel you're using to heat your home in the winter.
Terrific. You are a fascinating individual. Fascinating. And I have I'm really enjoying your interview. I want you to tell me, can we follow you on Facebook? Do you have a website, a Facebook page?
Yeah, well, it's probably the easiest one for me is Twitter, just Boydie. B0YDIE, Boydie, and we're working on climate change for a bit, and then I'm on bteam.org, which is where I'm working on at the moment.
Okay, and we'll be back in a moment, darlings. More interviews coming up. Keep watching. Peace, champagne kisses.
This has been a Crybaby Productions, darlings.